Hello again, everybody. Ben Joravsky here. We're calling this Money Man Mamdani Thursday, and here's why. Miles Kampf-Lassin standing by. Miles Kampf-Lassin standing by. He's the one who came up with that name right before we went on the mic. I thought it was pretty good. We're not just going to talk about Mamdani, the Z-Man, my second favorite mayor in the country right now. Yeah, he's my second favorite. Yeah, Brandon's still number one. But it's an interesting little aside to what happened yesterday or the last couple days in America. And Miles Kampf-Lassin from These Times, lefty writer and editor, great thinker, great Bulls fan. We'll close with a little dessert. I'm making myself talk Bulls with Miles. So how do I get the words out on this one? I find it of all the evil stuff, the diabolical stuff, the twisted stuff, the illegal stuff that Donald Trump has done, and this is the second go around. The last couple days, just to kind of like wow, it blow my mind. When I don't think it can get worse, it gets worse. I know I've said that before, but oh my lord! So you know what I'm talking about. It's like a two blow shot. One punch and then another punch. The first being setting aside what is like 1.7 billion, close to 1.8. I know they thought they were clever. 1776. God, they're so twisted and weird. $1 billion from your tax dollars to go to various insurrectionists and crooks and thugs and grifters in Donald Trump's political orbit. Essentially, as I understand it, well, if you were a January 6th insurrectionist, I suppose you're at the front of the list. But if you're anybody who sucks up to Donnie, and you can claim that you are harassed or you were the victim of government overreach, when you were prosecuted for your crimes, you can get access to this. So I serve to this fund, and there'll be a 5-person crew appointed by Donnie's flunkies to oversee it. It's not even clear if the people who get money will be listed public. The proceedings won't be public. It's all behind closed doors. It's your money. It's public money, but it's a private. It's a private giveaway. I guess I'm just thinking out loud. Like Eric Adams could probably get in on this. Rob Blagojevich can probably get on this. Anybody who claims that they were harassed because their affiliation with Donald Trump can get on this. And there's just a long list. I don't even want to go down the list of all kinds of people. There's a lot of sleazoids on this list. But the part that I find probably most perverted about it is that the insurrectionists can get on this list. I don't even know if that's the most perverted. The whole concept is perverted. We all saw what went down on January 6th. And I know Donald Trump's been trying to like change the narrative on this one. And he insists that all Republicans running for office abide by his lie that somehow or other the 2020 election was stolen, that he actually won, and that it should never been certified, ratified by Congress, and that the January 6th insurrectionists who showed up were heroes and they didn't do anything that bad, and they were actually now the victims. And so they demand the right to get paid for their insurrection. Not only did they get off, not only did he let them out of prison in many cases, but they're going to get paid for it. It's just mind-boggling. In fact, there's been a countersuit. One of the more encouraging things that happened, a countersuit, Miles, and I'll probably talk about that, by a couple of Capitol policemen who, in their lawsuit, they remind folks of what went down with the insurrectionists. And it's an attempt to stop this before the fund is set up and they start doling out money. And then the second thing is part of Donald Trump reached an agreement with his Todd Blanche, his handpicked attorney general, who used to be his criminal defense lawyer, and now is basically more or less sworn an oath of allegiance to Donald Trump, not you, the people, that from here on out, there will be no prosecution of Donald Trump or anybody in the Trump universe for income tax evasion. I guess the income tax laws don't apply to Donnie anymore. And so he's immunized. Wow. So let me get this. In our country, all you need to commit any crime you want and get away with it is is to pay an oath of allegiance to Donald Trump. You could do whatever you want. And furthermore, Donald Trump and his family do not have to pay taxes. That's essentially what they're saying. And they're declaring that the Republican Party has to fall in line. So a staggering day in the anti-democratic movement of Donald Trump. talked with Miles about that. And at the same day, this is why I brought him up, Mamdani. Like, what a counter. So Zoran Mamdani, a Democratic socialist, elected mayor of New York. We talk about him all the times. Ran on a progressive platform and has tried to implement the progressive platform. And when I say progressive, what I mean is finding a more progressive way of raising money to pay for government. That's the essence of it. And that means making rich people pay more, a greater percentage, a greater portion than non-rich people, because rich people can afford it. So it's more logical and it's more logical and efficient to fund what we need in government by having people who can most afford to pay taxes pay more. I don't think there's any way of getting around that, ladies and gentlemen. No matter how much they want to feed you, somehow or other, there's the opposition is strong in New York. I won't lie. It's strong in New York, just like it is here in Chicago. But instead of hating on the mayor, like the rich and powerful do in Chicago, they hate on Mayor Brandon Johnson, and they've made it clear they'll never support him. Uh, they barely even talk to him. The mainstream dailies, the newspapers bash him regularly. I'm sure that's no coincidence. In New York, they welcome him. And then the same day that Donnie was setting up his IRS funded slush fund and cutting his deal with his lawyer to be immunized, Mamdani met with titans of finance. That's the headline. And he met with people from with Jamie Dimon, head of J.P. Morgan Chase. He met with the head of executives from Goldman Sachs and other large New York City-based corporations, and they all loved him, or at least they all came out praising him. They hate his policies, but they seem to like him. And I'm hoping to see like a shred of hope in this. I've had this conversation with many of my guests. I'd love to hear what Miles has to say about it. I urge you to check out the Muiz Bawani conversation we had about the model minorities. Why so much, like, I don't know, affection, if you will? I don't know what else to call it, for Zoran Mamdani. And can it be put in a bottle and somehow or other, like, spread to other lefty politicians? Like maybe someone in Chicago, like Brandon Johnson. You know, could it be like, is it like a perfume, an odor that you could put on and then they'll treat you civilly? Really bizarre. And Mamdani has not pulled his punches. I mean, he's still pushing for his progressive agenda. I read about it all the time. I follow it closely. And yet it seems to be a amount of respect for him. And almost like the rich guys are enamored of him as well. So I'm wondering if this could be like iota of hope for the future. All right, I'm done with my opening oration. Miles has patiently sat through it. Welcome back, Miles. I guess we'll start with your general thoughts about everything I raised. Whatever you want to start with first, go ahead, because there's a lot on that table.
Well, we got to give some credit, first of all, to Zoran Mamdani for really pursuing an agenda without any, rest at all since he got into office. It's kind of what you talk about is it could be bottle this political vigor that he has or his ability to overcome odds. There's another politician who started his career as a mayor and is still around kicking it, who also, I think, generated a lot of support and stayed massively popular and pushed forward transformative ideas and actually pushed our entire political discourse and certainly the range of policies far to the left. And that's, of course, Bernie Sanders, who was Zoran Mamdani's political idol, or who he looked after, and certainly who he was inspired by, who kind of brought him into politics and credits with leading him down this path of democratic socialism. And that, I think, is the real answer when we talk about what are political lessons from this. It's that you have to be consistent. And there's nothing that Bernie Sanders has been not consistent for his entire political career. And Zoran Mamdani is following that same path. He might be taking these meetings with the titans of finance, but that hasn't stopped him from pursuing a radically redistributive agenda, which, as you said, is about wresting wealth from the upper echelons of our society and bringing it back down to the actual working people that make our society run. Just today, I think he announced that he's getting $50 tickets for 1,000 fans to go to the World Cup in New York. And it's like a deal he worked out with some of the World Cup people. He also just announced the opening of the first city-owned grocery store, following through on his plan to provide, fresh produce in food deserts and other areas of the city that other residents otherwise wouldn't have access. The obviously expanded childcare plan. They're already moving forward on freezing the rent. They put forward a balanced budget where he got the governor, Kathy Hochul, in Albany to give another $4 billion to help plug holes, and also this pied-to-tier tax on second homes. These are the kind of policies that really line up with what he campaigned on. And so he's not just talking about these things, he's actually delivering. Meanwhile, we see what's happening in the White House, as you said, where Trump is just getting a slush fund to help anyone who was loyal to him. And that's an example of like the decrepitness of our politics when this is taxpayer money. We're all, you, me, we're all in April giving our money to the government. And what are they doing with it? They're sending bombs to Israel, which is, still carrying out a genocide in Gaza. They're funding a war across the Gulf against Iran, which is causing our energy prices to skyrocket. $6 gas. There's a gas station near me where you can get 30 cents off gas if you get 3 footlongs from the subway. That's the kind of deals that Americans have to like operate with to make financial decisions because of the outrageous and reckless decisions of this administration. And meanwhile, what is Trump doing? He's talking about his ballroom. He's trying to get another $1 billion to build this ballroom while getting this slush fund. The background of the slush fund, which he's calling this Truth and Justice Commission, is of course the lawsuit he filed against his own IRS, which he's in control of as the president of the United States. He was trying to sue the IRS for $10 billion because they had supposedly leaked his tax returns because some amount of tax information was published in the New York Times. A judge was about to throw that out because the judge said, you can't, you're on both sides of this. You're suing yourself. So it just can't work. And so what they did instead, he just had them do a settlement where, as you said, they got 1776, $1.7 billion to just have to pay out January 6th insurrectionists. And so the countersuit you mentioned is that these officers that were involved in and victims of the violence that day, they're pointing to the constitutionality of it and saying you can't give money in support of insurrection. So that's how they're trying to block it. But meanwhile, Todd Blanche is on this commission of 5 people that's going to decide who gets this money, and he's running the Justice Department. So what chance do they have of winning that suit? It's hard to imagine. And as you said, some of the people like Stuart Rhodes, like the head of the Oath Keepers, is one of the people that could be in line to get paid out from this. These are the people that are actively doing, sedition against the United States, essentially. And yet that's like the priorities of the White House right now. So I think you're right to bring up that kind of contrast between what Mayor Mamdani is doing in New York right now with the complete incompetence and, self-interestedness of the Trump administration.
Yeah, really important for me to bring up what Mamdani's doing, because I'm always looking, not just like I've been blasting and criticizing Donald Trump since he came down the escalator. This is maybe the darkest chapter of political history of my lifetime. And that's saying a lot because, I lived through the Nixon years and murder of Fred Hampton and the war in Vietnam and the secret invasion of Cambodia, the bombing. So it was pretty dark and bleak then as well. But this one is just ongoing and relentless in a way that even Nixon was not. So it's encouraging to see the rise of Mamdani and the reaction he's getting. And my first thought is a very skeptical one, that they're in a moment of sizing him up in hopes to co-opt him, which would not be the first time that's happened in American politics. And I've seen it happen on a local level many times. I've heard it described to me many times, Miles, where young activists make a move for themselves on certain issues, and then they get called to have lunch or breakfast or dinner with sort of an intermediary with, in those days, it would be the Daily Machine. And the the intermediary said, you know, the mayor is really, you're on opposite sides with him on this issue, but boy, is he impressed with the way you're handling yourself, and you got a good future. And I don't know. How about, have you ever thought, you want to be a judge, or do you want to be an alderman, or do you want to be a state rep, or maybe there's a place for you in this? Maybe would you like an appointment? And so I'm kind of thinking that's what's going on to a certain degree. They're sizing him up, trying to maybe co-opt him. And he's so young, Mamdani. I personally do not believe he will be co-opted. Uh, Anything's possible, but I don't believe it. But I'm watching that very closely because it is a striking contrast, an absolutely striking contrast to what's happening in the rest of politics. The Republican Party. Let's get into this. The Republican Party has completely been taken over by Trump in a way that just every election underscores it. We saw it happen in Indiana, where the five reps and senators, what it is, state reps, were ousted by supporters of Trump, a punishment for having voted against gerrymandering. We saw it happen in Louisiana, where Bill Cassidy he got clobbered. He didn't even come in. He didn't even make the runoff. Came in third, and then just the other day, Tom Massie, the congressman in Kentucky, lost to a Donald Trump puppet candidate, and so it's really up to the Democratic Party. I mean, it's up to the Democratic Party, Miles, to lead us out of this. There's no hope that the Republicans will come to their senses. MAGA has made it clear they're staying with Donald Trump. They're going off the cliff with Donald, no matter what he does. No matter he can bomb away in Iran, even though he said he wasn't going to do it. He could say he could give away billions, even though he said he was going to cut federal spending. You just go down the list. So, what's your takeaway from Tom Massie's victory on Tuesday? Or excuse me, Donald Trump's victory over Tom Massie. Boy, that was Freudian. On Tuesday, what's your takeaway from that?
I think there's no doubt that it shows the iron grip that Trump holds over the party and his ability to win, to punish his enemies and elevate whoever's going to stand by his side. That said, this is, and they're very clear about that. I mean, this is, when Marjorie Taylor Greene announced she was leaving, Team Trump and MAGA were all cheering that on. This was also the most expensive House primary in U.S. history. And there's about $20 million spent against Thomas Massie, and Ed Gilrain, who is his opponent. Nobody even knows about him. All they know is that he's a Navy SEAL. He refused to participate in any debates against Thomas Massie. He hardly did any public events, and nobody even knows anything about him. There were hardly any ads about him, partially because what he said is that his life is confidential. It's classified, all because he was a Navy SEAL. And his pitch was basically, Trump has looked over my file, my history, and he supports me, so you should too. That was the only pitch to voters for the person that defeated Thomas Massie, who, remember, he was a Tea Party Republican. He came in when the Tea Party wave, and he was kind of a libertarian-minded guy. He's been against budget deficits, but also against forever wars, pro-Constitution, the kind of Rand and Ron Paul style of politics, and has had he's shown some commitment to those values. I mean, politically, I think he's pretty atrocious as well, but he did show a lot of integrity when it came to things like forcing the release of the Epstein files, which he teamed up with Ro Khanna, California Democratic congressman on, and when it came to trying to oppose this Iran war, which he's still trying to do. I mean, he's still trying to force a war powers resolution that could actually get through and force some congressional approval of these war efforts. And so he stayed true to those things, and Trump was pissed at him and took him out. But the difference is there was so much money this time. The reason this is the most expensive House primary is because all this pro-Israel money just flooded into the race, and it had to do with Thomas Massie bringing up Israel in connection to Epstein, with talking about the government's behavior as it comes to supporting just the Netanyahu government without any limit. And this is money from Miriam Adelson. This is money from Paul Singer, these massive donors who just do everything possible to make politicians fall in line to solely support Israel. If this was just about bucking Trump, he would have been gone a while ago. Like he bucked Trump about the COVID bill. You remember back in 2020 that because he said it was spending too much money. Like I totally disagree with that personally. I think we needed more money of COVID relief, but he refused to vote for it. He also refused to vote for the one big beautiful bill for Trump's centerpiece legislation this time. But it wasn't until this Epstein and Israel issue came up that all this money started to flow into the race and became the most expensive House primary ever. I mean, you know what the other two most expensive House primaries had been were the primaries for Cori Bush in Missouri and for Jamal Bowman in New York, who were two progressive Democrats that got ousted largely because of their criticism of Israel. And then you had all this AIPAC money and other pro-Israel money that flooded into those races and worked to get those two out of office. Now it's worked on the Republican side, getting Massie out. So I think the real takeaway is this is the power of money. Thomas Massie had won previous primaries by like 75%, 80%. It was not about him like losing popularity among his constituents. And this was also, I could go down many different roads when it comes to this primary. This was wild. Like their closing argument, the anti-Massie argument, it had nothing to do with Israel. You know what it was? They were putting out AI generated videos of Thomas Massie holding hands and supposed security footage, holding hands with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ilhan Omar. And it was videos of them walking into a hotel room together. And the ad was saying that they were in a throuple. Like, that they were all in a relationship with each other, physical relationship with each other. And like, this is all AI. And who were the people that came out most in the biggest numbers against Massie were voters over 65. These are not people who are watching this thinking, oh, this is an AI generated video. Yeah. They think it's real. Of course they do. Meanwhile, you also had Laura Loomer, who was Trump's kind of hatchet person, essentially, had on this woman on her podcast who was alleging that Thomas Massie had engaged with an affair with her, or they had a sexual relationship right after his wife died. She also alleged that he had what she called a boner phone that he used to solicit sex from women. Really ugly, wild stuff that he called his penis his pine comb. This is kind of wild stuff that was just polluting the waters of the airwaves, and it all worked to take down Massie. And it's partially because the Epstein file release has been so damaging to Trump. That's one of the only things that's really stuck. And Massie was a key leader in that. And the other thing that's sticking and making Trump unpopular is the Iran war. And Massie has been completely on the other side of that. And it's because of how it relates to prices and all the things we just talked about. So those are just a few of the takeaways. There's a lot of other elements to that race we could get into about who endorsed who, the weird alliances that were happening. You had Stuart Rhodes from the Oath Keepers endorse Massie. You had Kyle Rittenhouse endorse Massie. Meanwhile, Pete Hegseth flew to Kentucky to rally against Massie. At the same time, he's ordering these boat strikes in the Caribbean. It's all really wild stuff and shows how inane our politics are. But the last thing I'll say on it is I think one of the lessons is while AIPAC was successful in taking out Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman, they have become toxic in the Democratic Party. And you're seeing that in this year's primaries where they're trying to get all these people out of office, and the anti-AIPAC candidates are the ones that are coming out on top. So it could be a Pyrrhic victory, right? Where they think they've really shown their success in spending all this money, getting Massie out of office. But what happened to the Democrats 2 years ago, 4 years ago with all this AIPAC money, it's turned around a little bit, and you're starting to see the limits of all these ad spends in the Democratic primary. I don't know if you're going to see that in the Republican Party, but that's an indication to me is that they might be overstepping their hands here.
Wow, that was a hell of a riff, Miles. I was taking notes, trying to keep up. Pretty sure that Thomas Massie voted to certify the 2020 election. So he broke from Trump, I'm pretty sure, in 2020. Double check that. Was sort of Bill Cassidy's quote unquote crime against Donnie.
Well, he wanted to impeach Cassidy.
Cassidy, yes, he did.
Remember, you can download episodes of The Ben Joravsky Show wherever you download podcasts. Spotify, Google Play, Apple Podcasts. Just search for The Ben Joravsky Show, Joravsky. V as in victory, SKY. Subscribe, give us a review. But remember the rule, 5 stars only. Go find The Ben Joravsky Show wherever you download podcasts. But also get this, Ben actually bought a website, and it's actually pretty awesome. It's thebenjoravskyshow.com. Go find it right now, bookmark it immediately, because not only can you find previous Ben Joravsky Show episodes, thebenjoravskyshow.com is also the new home for Ben Joravsky columns. You may have noticed something's missing in your Chicago Reader these days. Where'd the Ben Joravsky columns go? They're over at thebenjoravskyshow.com. Go read his latest column. He's been posting his columns at thebenjoravskyshow.com for a while now. So after you read the latest column, go check out the rest. There's tons more on the site. There's also the BennyJ Book Club. What's that, you ask? It's a book club. Ben talks about the latest books he read. Was it a good book? Was it a bad book? Find out at thebenjoravskyshow.com. And finally, The Ben Joravsky Show is now an independently funded podcast. That's right, Ben's footing the bill. We love what we do, and we want to keep bringing you content like this. We'd be flattered even if you consider donating to The Ben Joravsky Show. This operation now runs off the hard work of independent podcast producers who kindly give their time to keep this operation going. We'd greatly appreciate your support. Again, it's thebenjoravskyshow.com. JORAV as in victory, SKY. Read the columns, join the book club, and find The Ben Joravsky Show and subscribe wherever you download podcasts.